It started on a Tuesday morning. The kind where the sun shines just right and you think nothing can possibly go wrong. I was halfway through brushing my teeth when the faucet coughed, sputtered, and died. I twisted the handle back and forth. But nothing came out, no trickle. No drip, just a hollow silence. At first, I figured it was a busted main or a city maintenance issue. But when I saw my neighbors washing their cars and sprinklers misting across the lawns, I knew it was just me. My stomach dropped. I called the water company, and they told me my account was perfectly fine, no unpaid bills, no service interruptions. That left one other possibility: the HOA. Ours was the kind of homeowners association that loved rules more than reason. They fined people for inconsistent mailbox color tones and non-conforming garden gnomes. But even for them, cutting someone's water seemed extreme. I marched down to the community office, still in my damp slippers. The HOA president, a smug man named Greg Stanton, sat behind his desk sipping sparkling water like a Bond villain. "Greg," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "why's my water off?" He leaned back, folding his arms. "You installed an unauthorized rain barrel," he said. "That violates the aesthetics clause." "A rain barrel? It's for collecting water, saving water." "Doesn't matter," he said. "Until it's removed and the fine is paid. Your community water access is suspended." I stared at him in disbelief. "You can't just turn off someone's water. That's illegal." Greg smiled thinly. "Actually, per Section 4B of the HOA bylaws, we can." I went home furious. I could have caved, paid the fine, removed the barrel, begged for mercy, but something in me snapped. They wanted to play power games. Fine. I'd play too. But on my own terms. That night, as I sat staring at my dry sink, an idea started forming. My property sat on land that used to be farmland. There had to be groundwater beneath it. If they wanted to cut off my water, I'd find my own. I didn't just want water back, I wanted justice. And maybe, just maybe, a bit of revenge. So, I grabbed a notebook and started researching how to dig a private well. By midnight, I had a plan, and a list of equipment rentals. If Greg thought I'd roll over, he was about to learn that I wasn't just a homeowner. I was a homeowner with a drill and a grudge. The next morning, I stood in my backyard with a rented auger, a shovel, and more determination than sense. The YouTube tutorials had made it look doable, maybe even easy, but as I stared at the hard-packed soil, I realized I might have underestimated the task. Still, fury was a powerful motivator. I started digging. The ground was stubborn, like it knew it was on Greg's side. By noon, I was drenched in sweat and covered in mud. But I'd made a few feet of progress. My neighbor, Marla, leaned over the fence, holding her iced tea. "What on earth are you doing, Sam?" "Digging a well," I said, breathless. She blinked. "Because Greg cut your water?" "Exactly." She laughed so hard she nearly spilled her drink. "You're insane." "Maybe," I said. "But I'm also thirsty." By day 2, word had spread. The HOA newsletter even mentioned unauthorized excavation activity on my property. Greg showed up again, hands on hips, barking about permits and violations. I told him politely that as long as I wasn't breaking ground outside my property line, he had no jurisdiction. He turned purple, stomped away, and I felt like I'd scored a tiny victory. After a week of digging and a lot of sore muscles, I hit something different: damp clay. I borrowed a submersible pump from a friend, set up a basic filtration system, and soon enough, a thin stream of water began trickling into a bucket. I stared at it like it was liquid gold. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I sent the sample to a local lab to test its safety. When the results came back, clean and potable, I felt unstoppable. I installed a small solar pump and connected the line directly into my house's plumbing. The first time I turned on my kitchen faucet and saw that steady flow, I laughed out loud. Greg must have noticed, because 2 days later, I got a formal notice demanding I cease and desist unauthorized water extraction. I framed it. What started as desperation had turned into defiance. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. And I had plans to take things further. Because if Greg thought I'd settle for independence, he hadn't met vindictive Sam yet. Next, I'd make the HOA pay, literally. A month later, I was the talk of the neighborhood. People came by just to see my renegade well. Some even asked how they could get one. The HOA hated it, which only fueled my satisfaction. My grass was greener, my flowers brighter, and my water bills non-existent. That's when I got my idea. The HOA maintained irrigation for community lawns, and every month, members paid for that upkeep, plus the shared water usage. But what if I could make them pay me instead? After all, I was technically providing my own resource now. Independently sourced and filtered. So, I drafted an invoice. To Greenwood Estates Homeowners Association. From Samuel Green. Provision of independent water resource. Amount due, $1,542. Estimated market value for 1 month of residential water supply. I printed it on crisp letterhead and hand-delivered it to Greg's office. His expression was priceless. "What is this?" he sputtered. "It's a bill," I said. "For water services. Since I'm no longer using yours, I figured I'd invoice the HOA for setting an environmental precedent." He laughed, too loudly. "You can't bill us for that." I shrugged. "Why not? You billed me for rain." He didn't find that funny. Within days, I received a cease and desist order and threats of legal action. But instead of backing down, I filed a counterclaim with the county, citing compensatory recovery for environmental damages inflicted by water access restriction. My lawyer, an old college friend, told me it was a long shot, but winnable on principle. The local paper picked up the story. Meant Diggs' own well after. HOA cuts water, now billing them for it. The headline went viral. Soon, reporters camped near the subdivision gates. Greg tried to silence it, but every interview made him look worse. The HOA board panicked. At the next community meeting, half the homeowners sided with me. "He's right," one said. "They can't just bully us." Another added, "We've had enough of these power trips." By the end of that week, Greg was cornered. My invoice might have started as a joke, but it had turned into a revolution. And I wasn't done yet. I had one more card to play, one that would end Greg's reign for good. 2 weeks later, the county inspector arrived, unannounced. Turns out, someone had reported improper water management practices within the HOA. I didn't have to guess who. But when the inspector examined my well, he found it fully compliant. Then he moved on to the HOA's communal systems. And that's when things unraveled. The HOA's irrigation system, it turned out, wasn't up to code. They'd been tapping into a secondary line without proper licensing. Worse, their so-called maintenance fees weren't being properly documented. In other words, Greg's empire was built on bad plumbing and worse paperwork. Within days, the county issued fines, not to me, but to the HOA. Thousands of dollars worth. The homeowners were furious. Meetings turned chaotic. Greg tried to deflect, blaming me for inciting rebellion. But when evidence surfaced, showing he'd approved unlicensed contractors to save costs, it was over. He resigned under pressure. The HOA board was restructured. The new president, a reasonable woman named Marla, called me personally. "Sam," she said, "we're revising the bylaws. You won't have to worry about water again." I smiled. That's good to hear. Because I was about to start drilling a second well. She laughed. "Don't push it." In a twist of poetic justice, the new HOA actually hired me as a sustainability consultant to help implement rainwater harvesting systems across the neighborhood. I made sure Greg's old office window faced my well pump. Months later, as I sat on my porch sipping coffee made with my own water, I thought back to that morning my faucet first went dry. What started as petty control had ended in empowerment. They'd tried to shut me down, but instead, I'd built something lasting, literally from the ground up. Sometimes revenge doesn't come in shouting or lawsuits. Sometimes it comes in the quiet hum of a water pump at sunrise, the sound of freedom. And every time I hear that steady flow, I smile. Because they shut off my water. But I made it rain.